I'll blend the English and the Twi for the sake of my community people. Nti, me na I'm paying this me baba share. Nhwemu ayeye no the community no e So by way of introduction, I think my previous presenters have made mention of the laws and other legal frameworks, so I didn't want to go there. So some of the questions we asked the respondents or the community people, you could all see that for this resettlement and compensation, the legal framework play a very important role. So we asked the respondents or the community people some questions regarding their knowledge or awareness of the legal framework. So for instance, we asked them whether they've heard of the LI 2175, the Minerals and Mining Act 2006 Act 703, the National Mining Policy and the Mining Companies Policy on Compensation and Resettlement. So as you can see on the slide, 40% of the respondents said before they were resettled, they didn't have any idea about these laws that we mentioned. 27% of them said they've heard of the LI 2175. 12% said that of the Mining Companies Policy on Compensation and Resettlement. So we went ahead to find out from them at what point in time did they hear or got to know of these LIs or these legal frameworks. And 92% of the respondents said they got to hear of this legislative instrument after they were resettled, and only 8% said they got to hear of them before they were resettled. And so we found out from them whether those who had the opportunity to hear or read of this legislative instrument helped them in any way in demanding for fair and adequate compensation from the mining companies. And over there too, as you can see on the slide, 66% said even though they've heard of the legislative instrument, but it didn't help them in any way to demand for fairer and better compensation from the mining companies. And the reason being that most of them didn't even access the document, and the few ones who accessed it, they didn't even understand the context of the document. So it did not help them in any way to demand for fairer and better compensation from the mining company. So then we found out further from them what action they took after getting to know of this legislative instrument or these laws. And over here too, 45%, majority of the respondents said they didn't take any action. Though they got to know of the laws, they didn't take any action. 35% said it helped them to increase advocacy. And more to make some more. And 22% also said they resorted to demonstration. So their level of satisfaction with the resettlement, we found out from them whether they were satisfied with the kind of resettlement they had. And over here too, 88% said no. Money is paid to them, the kind of building that the companies put out for them, and the kind of social amenities. In some cases, when you go to BDM, as my previous presenters have said, they put out the building without toilet facilities. But the planning standard states that there is no way you put up a building for a human being without including toilet facilities. And you go to BDM, they tell you that they were resettled 10 years before they were given electricity. 10 years. After 10 years, they didn't have electricity. So obviously, they were not satisfied. So 88% of the respondents said no, they weren't satisfied with. So these are some of the things that the people told us verbatim. And some of them, when I read them, I become emotional because I'm the community relations officer. I go to these communities, I sit with them, I talk with them, and we all saw from the documentary, when some of them are talking, they talk with passion. And life, they tell you life was far better because say my community for me catch you say baby I know one so I know ko ne fu onto so onto nchini ensuo na da hono eno bi no osano otumi to da e wo nsuo no otumi to nso a onya ne koto onya ne fish but o de na ba betena da bi a na adwuma na o ya o yekue ni no adwuma na fi ni nsem o amfa adwuma fufu bi a anhye na na emu oni adwuma sebi mokokra na obetwi no ne bedi a this okuto moko enti obviously omo lives no were better before they were resettled. So we asked them, per the monies given to you, in some cases, they were not even giving some monies at all. So we asked them what would be an acceptable amount that would be acceptable as appropriate compensation. And it will interest you to know that 46% of the respondents said, as at now, if they are giving between 50,000 Ghana cedi upwards per the destruction cost to their water bodies and their farmlands and other things that they've been deprived of, from 50,000 Ghana cedis upwards would be an acceptable amount for them. And only 3% said they will be content with between 3,000 to 5,000 Ghana cedis. And as you can see, 24% said, okay, between 20,000 to 50,000 Ghana cedis. That is for destruction to their farmlands and other properties. Then we also asked them, because per the findings of the report, we got to know that they have their water bodies destroyed and other things. So we also asked them, for the destruction down to your water bodies, what would be an acceptable and appreciable amount that you'd be content with? And over there, 36% said between 50,000 Ghana cedis would be okay for them. And these are some of the responses that they told us. And we asked them to describe how they feel about the experiences after the resettlement and compensation. And as you can see, some said terrible. We didn't even have schools for our children in the case of BDM and other places. And over here, an old man told us that before God and man, I want to quote verbatim, I'm also old, therefore won't lie for anything. I didn't even receive even 1 Ghana cedis. And it's so pathetic, very, very sad. And so this is in the case of Anwiem and BDM and Duchua, previously resettled community. But there's another one, which is Anwiem, which is seeking resettlement. So the 2 previous communities I spoke about are within the Obuasi Municipal Assembly. But Anwiem is located within the Obuasi East District Assembly. It's a small community located within the Hansunya electoral area in the Obuasi East District Assembly with about 222 population according to the 2010 housing and population census. And this is an image of Anwiem. As we can all see, the community has been sandwiched by Anglo-Gold Ashanti. The entire community is competing for space with Anglo-Gold Ashanti, and this is Anwiem. And this is the community that the sustainability manager, according to the documentary report, said there is no need, or they don't see the need to resettle this community. This is Anwiem for you. And so, making a case for Anwiem, why should Anwiem be resettled? In terms of economic activity, the entire community has been deprived of their economic activities. Farmlands taken away from them. The women who previously went to the forest to fetch firewood to sell as a means of livelihood, now they can no longer go into the forest to fetch firewood to sell for their livelihood activities. So the community used to have an animal farm, they used to have a piggery. That piggery has been destroyed. And so they've lost everything. But they said there's no need for Anwiem to be resettled. In terms of human rights violations, restriction on free movement, when you go to Anwiem, all the routes leading to Anwiem have been blocked by the mine. Frequent invasion of community by security agencies acting on the instructions of Anglo-Gold Ashanti, leading to injuries. That is the case of Anwiem. Woko Anwiem is here. Omo kwaya ekokro no ho nyina yasisi ne nyina ekwaya nkola fa so ko school ene ensu to ankola kro ntumi nko school de bia sa sojafo edi kro mu train twie ne nyina say Anglo-Gold Ashanti sem no ebini no. Environmental impact. There's this issue of noise pollution from the company trucks, atmospheric pollution, dust, frequent flooding due to poor drainage system, exposure to heavy metals as a result of the presence of tailings, and also safety concerns, frequent rock falls leading to fatalities at Anwiem. By way of conclusion, the research concludes that when it comes to resettlement and compensations, the communities are largely shortchanged. Thank you for your attention.